It was past midnight when the storm howled through the quiet mansion on the hill. Rain battered against tall glass windows, lightning flashed over the marble floors, and the silence of wealth echoed through every empty hall. In the midst of that silence, a faint sound broke through, the soft creak of a cabinet door, the rustle of small hands searching for something, anything. Inside the dimly lit kitchen, a frail little girl no older than 8 stood barefoot on the cold tiles, clutching a piece of bread so tight her tiny fingers trembled. Her face was pale, her cheeks smudged with dirt, and her wide eyes darted to every corner as if the shadows themselves might catch her. And then they did. A tall figure appeared in the doorway, his expensive suit faintly illuminated by the lightning's flash. His expression was unreadable, stern, controlled, yet carrying something far heavier behind those sharp eyes. The girl froze, her lips quivering as if she'd been caught by fate itself. The bread slipped from her trembling hands, falling with a soft thud that felt deafening in the vast emptiness of the mansion. If you believe that one act of kindness can change a life, if you still have faith in second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Whispers of Kindness. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world that even a small act of compassion can rewrite someone's destiny. The man was Alexander Reed, a self-made millionaire whose name echoed across business magazines and television screens. To the world, he was a symbol of discipline, success, and power. But behind the lavish lifestyle and cold reputation, there lived a man who hadn't felt warmth in years. His mansion was full of art, but void of laughter, filled with luxury, but starved of life. He had lost his wife to illness years ago and his only son to distance, a boy who had grown to resent his father's obsession with money. Alexander had built an empire but destroyed his home in the process. And now, standing before him was a reflection of hunger, not for wealth, but for survival. The little girl's ribs pressed faintly against her torn dress. Her small feet were scratched, her hair tangled, and her eyes, oh, those eyes, held the kind of fear only the forgotten know. Alexander's first instinct was control, he demanded explanations for everything. But something in that moment, perhaps the rain, or the fragility in her voice when she whispered, "I'm sorry," broke through the hard walls he had built around his heart. Instead of calling the police, he simply stepped forward and picked up the fallen bread. Quietly, he placed it back into her trembling hands and said softly, "Eat." The girl blinked in disbelief, then slowly brought the bread to her lips, chewing with both shame and relief. Alexander didn't speak further, didn't scold her or ask why. He simply watched as she devoured the food like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Later that night, while she sat by the fire wrapped in a blanket far too big for her, he discovered her name, Lila. She had been living on the streets for months, ever since her mother had fallen ill and passed away in a shelter downtown. Her father had disappeared long before, and she had no one left. She survived by begging, sometimes stealing, and hiding from the cold beneath old bridges. Alexander listened silently, something stirring deep inside him. It had been years since anyone had looked at him with such naked honesty. This little girl, unwanted by the world, had wandered into his life by sheer chance, or maybe by fate's quiet design. Days turned into weeks, and the man who once filled his life with business meetings and empty dinners now found himself thinking about what Lila might want for breakfast. He had his staff prepare small meals she could actually eat, clothes she could wear, and books she might enjoy. At first, she was frightened of everything, the chandeliers, the maids, even the sound of her own name spoken kindly. But slowly, she began to laugh again, and her laughter filled the mansion in a way money never could. For Alexander, every moment with her was a rediscovery, of patience, of gentleness, of what it meant to be human. He would watch her chase butterflies in the garden where no one had walked in years, or fall asleep in the big armchair beside the fireplace, her head resting against a stuffed toy she'd found in his late son's old room. Sometimes he'd catch himself smiling without realizing it, and it terrified him, not because of her, but because of what she awakened in him. One afternoon, while he was working in his study, Lila walked in holding a crumpled paper she'd found in the trash. It was a drawing, his son's, from years ago. She asked him softly, "Is this your child?" And for a moment, Alexander couldn't speak. His throat tightened as memories rushed back, of a little boy who once loved to draw but grew up hating the man who never came home early enough to see them. Lila, sensing his sadness, placed her small hand over his and whispered, "You're not bad, you just forgot how to be happy." That night, he cried for the first time in years. From then on, Alexander tried to do better, not just for Lila, but for the person he had lost inside himself. He started visiting the children's shelter she once stayed in, donating quietly without revealing his name. He began to cook small meals on weekends, insisting Lila help, laughing at their burnt pancakes and messy aprons. The mansion that once echoed with loneliness now hummed with warmth, stories, and second chances. Months later, when Lila's health began to improve and her laughter returned fully, Alexander decided to adopt her officially. The papers were signed, but to him, the moment that truly made her his daughter was far simpler. It was when she looked up at him one night and said, "Good night, Dad." That single word mended something broken in him that no amount of money ever could. Years passed, and Alexander's fortune grew even more, but now he used it differently, to build schools, orphanages, and food centers across the city. Every project carried Lila's name, and every child fed reminded him of that cold night when a scared little girl broke into his kitchen, and in doing so, broke open his heart. On the anniversary of that night, Lila, now a young woman, baked him a loaf of bread, the same kind she had once stolen. She placed it before him with a teary smile and said, "You gave me bread once, and a life. Now it's my turn." He didn't need to say anything. He simply reached out, held her hand, and whispered, "You gave me back my heart." If this story touched your heart, if you believe that compassion can rewrite destinies, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness. Every click helps this channel spread more stories that remind us that love is stronger than judgment, and that sometimes, the smallest act of mercy can heal two souls at once. Herb special request. Before you scroll away, comment below one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words might inspire someone else to believe in kindness again. Yellow heart.